All wings report in.
Red 10 standing by.
Red 7 standing by.
Red 3 standing by.
Red 6 standing by.
Red 9 standing by.
Red 2 standing by.
Red 11 standing by.
Red 5 standing by.
I have you.
And welcome everyone to the 585 Squadron podcast, where we like to fly X-Wing and we like to fly silly. I'm Nate, the Scum pilot.
Hey everyone, this is Pat. I fly Rebels.
And Nick, the Imperial Flyer.
Yes.
Tyrant.
We've been playing this game, X-Wing Tabletop, for about 2 years in total. We all kind of started together, and we've heard a lot of podcasts online. We decided to give it a shot of our own. I personally have never been to a tournament, and I stick my chest out proudly saying that because fly casual, I guess.
I've been to a couple of store tournaments. Our local store, or one of our local stores, Millennium, runs them pretty regularly on a monthly basis for the most part. And I've been to 2 or 3 of those. Before that, again, like you say, Nate, just really playing amongst our group of friends. It was very, very nerve-wracking the first time I went to the store to play people I'd never heard of. In fact, I lost to a list that was just one 70-point ghost. So, yeah, like I was literally just that nervous to play and meet new people and make sure I was doing everything right and all that jazz. But I think we've got our regionals coming up here February 11th, and then we've actually got the system open. We're very lucky to have it about an hour away. Can't remember what ours is called. I think it's Naboo is ours, the one in Syracuse, New York.
They have names? Cool.
They're named after planets. I think ours is Naboo. Thanks, FFG, I guess.
something Star Wars something? Yeah.
Yeah. But that's gonna be the first time that we're really playing at a high competitive level. And I think when we talked about doing the podcast, that's something I was very interested in was, okay, we've been playing for just almost 2 years, probably between a year and 2 years.
Seems like wave 3.
Yeah, between the group, and it'd be very unique to track our journey. A lot of the podcasts have very experienced players, which is good because as a casual, that's what I want to hear when I'm getting into the competitive scene.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be very interesting to see kind of our journey as people who play each other, and therefore we have that certain mentality. We can kind of play mind games with each other, taking it actually to a competitive and playing medalists on a regular basis.
And we've come quite a long way from Nick. I think the first game we had together, we had no asteroids and we just flew X-Wings at each other, like one X-Wing each, right?
Yep. I think my very first game, I flew a Whisper and didn't know what agility dice was, and that was bad.
What does Cloak want? 2 dice? Dice good.
Yep. And I remember getting 4 dice thrown at me, 4 dice hitting me, and being like, I died. What do I do now?
Nick, I remember one of the first games we played, you played a Whisper and then Han Solo. Like, yes. We just mixed factions. We didn't even care.
And we learned very quickly why there are different factions.
Yes.
And like I said, right off the bat, we each play our own faction with so much fervor, it's ridiculous. I've born and raised Scum. I never really liked Imperials or Rebels. Like, movies, cool, that's nice, but, like, their ships are okay. And then I saw the Kuraz, which is still waningly my favorite ship, but it got me into Scum, and now I have Jump Masters and Dengru, and I'm all set. I'm good.
And Mind Link.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I flew Rebels because I wanted to fly the good guys. I grew up reading, not just seeing the movies, but reading all of the books that are now legend, the X-Wing books, all those books, and so getting to fly X-Wings, B-Wings, K-Wings, just amazing to me. So as soon as I got into the game, I knew I wanted to play the Rebel faction. I think out of all of us, I've probably been the player to diversify the most when it comes to playing different lists. I've probably played, enough Imperials and Scum to get a feel not be an expert by any means, but to get a feel what a mind link list flies like. And of course, Nick, I've been practicing with you, so I've gotten to fly a lot of defenders against you to your frustration. So getting to know like the meta lists of each faction, I think, is important.
Yeah.
Thinks he's the best player.
We'll see about that.
Regionals are coming up soon.
If I don't finish last, I'll be very happy.
So when I finish last with defenders, I get to cry?
Correct. I'll give you a participation trophy.
It's a little like broken defender with like a kid in front with a thumbs up holding an ice cream. You did your best.
Yeah, no, I put your defender on the ground, I smash it, and then I just give it back to you. That's the trophy.
Someone hates defenders.
Tokens.
Yeah, you step on it, just evade token fountain comes out of it. So one of the first things we wanted to really get into after introducing ourselves is we want to talk about what we are flying. I know a lot of people talk about like what their list is, and especially with the meta being so, which we'll get to later, being so like 2 or 3 lists maybe at the most. We like to have fun and fly silly and run really stupid builds that we think are interesting, even though they might not ever go anywhere. So we want to talk about what we're flying.
Pat, why don't you lead us off?
Okay.
Since you're the best, of course.
Yes. So I think I'll probably start off with what I started flying around the new year when we decided we were going to do the podcast and go to these tournaments, and that was Kwings. They're
Miranda?
my favorite ship in the game. They're just so fun to fly. Bombs are amazing. Slam action is something very unique, and I love the ships. I flew Miranda and a Guardian, so just 2 50-point Kwings, and I really got good at flying them because when I wasn't good at flying them, they exploded with 50 points worth of stuff on them and did nothing. So, and Nick, I know you and we had played a lot with you playing, versions of either Palp Defenders or just Palp Bases in general against the Kwings with their slam and their bombs, and those were some very interesting games. I kind of tried to step away from the Kwing a bit. I really do love Miranda. She's probably, in my opinion, the best Rebel pilot there is right now. Other people would make a case for Korn. Obviously, the Worlds list that was a runner-up for Rebels was Korn, Miranda, but Korn just doesn't jive with my play style. He just blows up every time I fly him. I'm not a Korn player for sure, but Miranda, I love flying her, so I've paired her with 2 TLTs recently. Try and get 3 TLTs there to kind of face down defenders and still have those bombs and homing missiles as well.
That's just naked TLT Y-Wings, right?
Yeah, yep, 2 TLT Y-Wings with no astromech and then a 52-point Miranda. And she's got the homing missiles, so she can drop a shield. Hopefully she has one. Hopefully she's just shot first. But if she has that shield, she can drop that. That's a 5 dice attack. You can't spend your evade tokens. Defenders just do not want to see that. And the fact that so many defenders tend to be lower PS than Miranda, who's an 8. I think you've got Vessery at 6 and Riot at 5. So she really, it is really easy to get those homing missiles off against those defenders. And then if you've got 2 TLTs to follow it up, it's not, it's not unlikely that you could kill a defender in the first turn if you do it right.
So it kind of really sounds like you built your list around, specifically to counter other lists. Would you say like Defenders is number 1 counter?
Yeah, I think for me it's Defenders. Honestly, the main reason is because I haven't flown against Dengaroo a lot, whereas when I've gone to Millennium, I've seen a lot of Defenders there. So I brought my Kwings to the store. I brought my TLTs to the store to try and counter that. Trying to find a list that can counter both Dengaroo and Defenders, especially in the Rebel faction right now, is quite tough. There's really no go-to list, which Rebels can say this is the best Rebel list. Whereas Pop Defenders, I mean, just efficiency-wise, I mean, it just it is the best list in my opinion for Imperials at the moment, and I think you can say the same for Dengaroo. Although if I was going to fly Scum, I'd prefer the Mind Link lists myself, but because that's what I was seeing, playing Nick, for example, playing at Millennium, I definitely built to counter that. Whereas more recently, my the build I've flown against Unate is can I build a Rebel list that really packs a punch against Dengaroo and Defenders, and while it might not be an auto win against one, it definitely won't be an auto loss against the other, and so that's what I'm trying to do, if that's even possible. And if not, then I think my plan B is just going to be build directly a counter to either Defenders, Mindlink, or Dengaroo, and just hope I don't run into the other lists. So yeah, just to finish up what I've been playing most recently is the Rey in the Millennium Falcon, who is by far and away the best card out of that set, both the pilot and the crew. And then I've actually there's been a lot of talk on Reddit about who to fly her with, and I haven't seen a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people say Poe, and then obviously Miranda, Nora, and those are all good choices. But I love the Ghost, and I always want to make that work in whatever way I can.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I think half my list start out with like maybe I could put Miranda in, or maybe a Ghost.
We're definitely by the next episode, we're definitely going to be able to see some results from a very interesting list that may or may not feature two Ghosts from Pat. Just no spoilers, but that might happen.
No, yeah. I'm debating whether I should even mention it at all, because maybe I just want to show up to regionals with it.
Do it.
Or the system open and just be like, this is my list. I don't care what anyone thinks.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, so I've got Rey kitted out with Kanan and the sloop title. So for anyone who doesn't know, it basically means if you can do that sloop, and then Kanan will get rid of the stress, because you can kind of choose the order of which the stress and Kanan happen.
The 5 sloop, right?
The 3 sloop.
Oh,
yeah.
3? Okay.
Yeah. So I've also got Finn on there because, I mean, they've just built Finn for Rey, so it's the obvious choice. I did mess around with Glitter Stim and countermeasures on there, almost like a Rebel Dengar, but I've taken those off because I wanted to have points for expertise, which I think is really fantastic on Rey. Those, if you're an Arc and you've got those native rerolls and you're not stressed and you can turn those eyes into hits, I mean, it is really, really easy to get 4 hits, 5 hits out of that. So I have expertise on there instead of VI as my EPT, and then I wanted engine upgrade, but just too many points into Rey at that point. So instead, what I've settled for is smuggling compartment, and that allows me to take an illicit, which is burnout slam. So.
Nice.
If I'm ever in trouble for one turn and I haven't bumped, I can just kind of hightail it out of there. And then the Ghost is just a Lothal Rebel PS3. It's got the Auto Blaster turret. It's got fire control system. It's got Hera, so I can just 5k constantly. And then my most recent crew is I had Chopper on it, but now I have Zeb. So that I can bump and maybe get a range 1 5-dice attack as well. So that's the list I've been flying, and that's the list I'll probably end up taking to regionals. So that's the list I'm going to be flying for the next 2-3 weeks, and hopefully it can punch through some of these defensive powerhouses.
All right. You kind of mentioned 2 separate lists, a Miranda, 2 Y-Wings, and then your Ghost and the Millennium Falcon. Which, like, I know you've been flying both successfully. Excuse me. Which one would you say is more your favorite, and why?
I think they do different things. The TLT list is easier to fly, I think, because you just have to stay out of that range 1 bubble, and even for Miranda, you can stay in that range 1 bubble and drop a shield to throw 4 dice at range 1. But I prefer the Ray Ghost list, because if you get a ship in arc with both those ships, you are going to be hitting it with lots of dice. The main thing with both lists is the low agility, and so I've had lots of matches where I go down to half health on both ships, or the Ghost gets evaporated really fast, but I trade it for something. So when it comes to tournaments, this is something we've never really had to really manage in the game. When it comes to MOV, that's going to be an important factor when it comes to these tournaments, and we've never really had to manage that, right? So we never have to manage a game that we're going to lose to try and get something out of it, whether it's less MOV lost for us, or maybe we take out a couple ships, to get some MOV back.
Yeah.
We've never done that before, and I think that with both lists, half the list is going to die. These Y-Wings or Miranda is going to get focused down, and the same thing with my list. Whether you go for Ghost or Miranda, you're going to hit them. So things are going to die, and both lists are very much about, do I kill things before you kill my things? And especially with the Ghost Ray list, that is a slippery slope, and games can go for you or against you very, very quickly. So
Yeah, I kind of felt like I've played against both these lists and one flying against both of them. I feel like engagement started against Miranda at turn 2 or 3, easy. It was quick, like right off the bat, we're going to get going, we're doing this, because Miranda's got to drop her bombs. Miranda's got things to do, can't keep a lady waiting. But with the Ghost list, we kind of like danced around each other around the edges for like 4 or 5 turns before we actually started a real engagement. And I was running, this isn't part of my segment of what I'm running because I have a very special thing to talk about, but at the time I was running Kuraz or the Cobra and Protectorate Starfighter, so I wanted, or Fenrau, so I wanted to get within range 1, and I wanted to hit him hard and fast, but I needed that optimal jump, and like, I feel like once we bring these lists to tournaments, once we start getting, super pro, then we're going to start seeing that like dancing game in the first like 4 or 5 turns, and then the end of game MOV difference is going to make a huge difference in the actual game. Because like I could take out, I remember in that last game we played, I took out half of your Millennium Falcon, and that was enough to give me enough points where the last turn, we were looking at the timer, it was like 5 minutes left in the round. If we had one final engagement, it would have been yours easy because you would have taken out one of my ships. But the fact that we went to time, I was just like, all right, 4 forward, run away later. Changed up things a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And, I'd say over the last year, I've been very casual about things like where I put asteroids and what asteroids do I pick, to the point where we just pick 6 and throw them on the board. And if, as long as they were legal, that was fine. But yes, with this ghost list, I bring 3 debris, and that's because I have Hera on the ghost. So I have no problem, getting blocked on debris, K-turning over debris multiple times. I'll risk those crits, and I found that's very effective. But like you say, when we're talking about like X-Wing being kind of a chess-like game where you're trying to set up to get the most effective first blow. Really avoiding getting stuck anywhere where there's like asteroids you can land on is huge for my list, and I do not want to be anywhere near big asteroids at all. And Ray, even debris for Ray with that stress, even though I have Kanan, anytime expertise is turned off, it's dangerous for me because you're paying 4 points for it.
Yep.
So multiple times I played against our friend Mike twice with this list. Multiple times I blocked myself with the ghost so I didn't land on a debris. and
That's a good
it
idea.
actually worked because I still had expertise, and I still had the rerolls. So setting that type of stuff up and knowing what ship needs to do what. Like the Ghost could not care less about debris except for crits, and the fact that Rey, I'd rather get blocked than land on a debris with her when it comes to the stress. So knowing your ships and knowing how to set up the asteroids is something I've been very aware of the last few months, and so that's why. And I think you've been the same way, Nate. And I think that's why our games, especially you and I games, they're evolving into more of like a chess, like back and forth, trying to set up for that initial, jouster or conflict. And that's been very interesting to me because when I go to Millennium, I see the same thing. Whereas if I play casual with my friends, it's like, okay, let's fly towards each other. Let's shoot each other.
I gotta say, I love it, but I also find it really annoying when I'm trying to play like my list that I'm going to talk about in a second, or like other stupid fun lists where it's like, I just want to see how well this is going to perform, and then we're spending like 5 minutes deciding the best asteroid placement, and I'm like, damn it, I'm already kind of losing the momentum.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, for my list, like I said, when you hit them, they're going to go down, so I have no problem spending the first 20 minutes actually in the game, like playing a little game of chess, like faking out. We go back to the Miranda list. A lot of times what I try to do Miranda is try and get the opponent to engage her immediately and then slam away and bring in the two Y-Wings.
Yeah.
And now they have a choice. They can chase Miranda and the Y-Wings are going to follow them, or they'll have to turn in to face the Y-Wings, and Miranda can kind of turn and get behind them. So for my Ghost Ray list, because it's so easy to take damage, engaging it for longer and putting that pressure on my opponent to, even though you can do damage, to eat through 16 hull on the Ghost and 13 on the Falcon, that matters. So putting the pressure on them to have to come at me and maybe engage on my terms is a good thing.
And just for the record, I hate both of these lists so much.
I'm going to take that as a compliment, I guess.
Well, I want to leave Nick's lists for last because that's actually going to segue us into the next segment. But I wanted to go over one of my lists that I've been playing, and by been playing, I mean I played it once and I fell in love with it, even though I lost horribly. But I love flying it. So my list, everyone's heard of Dengaru, the mighty Dengaru. I call this the Catharu. It's it's Cath, the Slave One, the like least used ship in Scum and Imperials. I have countermeasures as the mod, because 2 agility is not going to do anything. Slave One, just so I can get that bomb, or torpedo, one of the two, whatever. Adrenaline Rush, which I'll come back to in a minute. It's Counternet, Tail Gunner, ion pulse missiles, and extra munitions, just to give it a little bit more weight, just in case. My other ship is Manaru, 47-point Manaru, with the Punishing One title, because I need it. Push the Limit, the K4 security droid, and Unhinged Astromech, and Burnout Slam. Now, this list, originally, the whole design was I wanted Cath to be able to use his rear arc. It was inspired by the quad jumpers and the fact that they can fly backwards and manipulate that arc. And I'm trying to think, like, how can I start practicing for that before the quad jumpers come out? Because, I love them so much. And the closest thing I could think of is any ship with a rear-facing arc. And essentially, if you have a rear-facing arc, you are flying backwards, quote-unquote. So I wanted to get some use out of that. And then I was looking over some cards that I didn't see used a lot, and I wanted to see how I could use them. I came up with a combo using Adrenaline Rush, or using Cath, face them, just joust them, go 5 forward, or I think 4 forward is the max. Yeah, you go 4 forward, but you do that 4 forward K turn, so you 180 and you just put your butt in their face. You pop Adrenaline Rush, one-time use, you only really need it once. You pop it, it goes from a red maneuver to a white maneuver, so you just made a 5 or 4K white. That means you still have your action. You use your action to drop Connernet and then blow them up. And then next turn, because they got hit by the counter net, they're ioned, they move forward, you do the same thing again, you could potentially drop another counter net. It just locks your opponent into a situation that they have a hard time getting out of. Unfortunately, this also means that your opponent's going to be facing your butt shooting at you, so you're essentially shooting at each other and just burning each other down. I recently put the ion pulse missiles on because I found Cath facing forward is useless. Like, it was at one point that 3 dice to attack was useful, but now not so much anymore. The other ship, Manaru, has got some power with the Punishing One title. The main thing is Unhinged Astromech, which makes all your 3s green, and K4 Security Droid that says anytime you make a green maneuver, you automatically get a target lock on a target. And then with Push the Limit, you're essentially using Focus, Target Lock, and Barrel Roll every turn if you really need to. And then because most of your stuff's green anyways, it doesn't matter, that's always happening. That is great. That is really great. And you can hold onto it with Manaru, or you can just hand it off with Cath, so the Ion Pulse Missiles, or just to have a target lock, is really good. I felt like that was such a fun combo and such a fun thing to fly, and it's definitely a prey on the weak kind of list, because when I was playing up against Pat, he knew, just by looking at it, he knew my combo. He saw Adrenaline Rush, and he's like, why would you do that? And immediately figured out 4K turn into a counter net is going to be deadly. Do not let that happen. So he never lined up in a situation to let that happen.
Yeah. I think the first thing I did with my Ghost, the very first time we played that list, and this is my worry about the list in general, is I just put my Ghost right where that 4K was. And I was like, you can bump me if you want to.
Yeah. I loved the idea of it, but I've played lots of other games that are just basically prey on your opponent making mistakes, and that's not my style of play, especially in a tournament, because I know people don't make nearly as many mistakes when the stakes are higher. Also, it's a kind of list that after like 4 or 5 games in a row in a tournament, I'm going to be brain dead and not going to be able to fly something like this. Also, I just really want the Fire Spray to see some love. Like, it's such a useless ship, and it's overpriced, and there are so many more ships that are getting more overpriced because the game's getting cheaper, and
Yeah, and the thing is, with, like you said, with the 3 dice attack out the front, when you're spending half your points on that 3 dice attack, I don't want to say it's not good enough, but it's getting devalued for sure. I mean, when you're spending 50 points on a ship, then you're looking for like Korn or Dengar, where they can fire twice. You're looking for Miranda, who can throw 5 dice.
Right.
You're looking for ships like this, where you're getting those 4 or 5 dice attacks. Ray's another example. Even someone like Nora, when you're spending 40-ish points on her. But with expertise, there's actually a way to build her where she doesn't need necessarily to push the limit in order to add that extra focus to her attack or defense. So ships that are able to either add dice or take a second attack, those are really the ones you're going to want to end up paying the extra money for.
Right.
But especially, I think the main thing with your list is like I said, as soon as I knew Cath wanted to turn around, I went for the block. So I was almost going to suggest this to you. Almost do a 1 for the first turn, and then the second turn, no matter where your opponent is, just 4K, and just kind of show them your butt. You won't 4K right in front of them, but if they're moving towards you the next turn, then you're going to be firing out the rear, and that really, like, if you want to make this 53-point Cath work, I mean, you have to be shooting out of the rear, not every turn, but most turns, in order to really make that work. In my opinion, and when you can do that, and when you can make it work, then you're gonna scare some ships. I mean, defenders don't like having 2 dice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of rebel ships would like to at least throw 1 dice so they can see 3PO. Things like this.
That's kind of why I adjusted the list so it has ion pulse missiles now, because at range 3 I did not have an option with Cath. Coming forward range 3, I was like useless. And I would probably only land 1 damage if anything. So the ion pulse missiles are like why not? May as well try to fire for it, and it's only three points, which is kind of expensive. But with extra munitions, I was never a huge fan of ordnance in the first place, but adding it on like that or building it up like that, I was like, why not? There's only 2 ships. Let's see how this works. And I had a lot of fun. It was so much fun.
Yeah, I like the list. I think it's a lot of fun. Ion Pulse gives you that control element out the front as well as you have the counter net out of the back. So I do like that as well. And yeah, like I said, it's like I love the fire spray as much as you. We played a list where we were playing a lot of competitive lists, and so we all agreed to build some lists that were with ships that were not used very often. And one of the ships that I went right for was the fire spray. I ran a 2 fire spray list. And that was a lot of fun. And you want the fun ships to be played even in a competitive setting.
Like the Star Viper.
Yeah, exactly. Guri is so much fun to fly. She's a Miranda level of fun. And you want to see her out on the table. So hopefully you can make this work and get some practice in and keep kind of adjust it and make it good.
Mm-hmm.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure offhand. Does the fire spray for Scum have a illicit slot?
No.
That is a shame.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Burnout Slam would also be great for this build. The very first turn, you 3 forward.
I got it.
I think they have a 3K turn. Yeah. The very first turn you could 3 forward and then 3K, and then really from there your butt would be pointing in the rest of the game. It'd be fantastic, but yeah, that's unfortunate.
I mean, that's one nice thing. The reason I put Burnout Slam on Manaru is I can essentially in one turn with Push the Limit say I'm going to take a green 3, any of my green 3s. I'm going to take a focus action. I'm going to use PTL to do Burnout Slam, which is going to be another green maneuver because it's going to be a 3. Or if not, either one of them is going to be green, which is probably going to put me within range 3 of something, and then I could force like a pretty big block, which is give some buffer space for Kath. But that's
yeah. So unfortunately, I have to rules you, sir, because Slam you can. So it's one of those weird rules. I don't know why they put it in, but I'm sure there's a reason for it. Slam can never be a free action. So you couldn't push the limit to slam, unfortunately. I never really understood like what was the concern when it comes to balance with that, but that's just one of the quirky rules I learned playing Kwings, is that you couldn't use it as a free action. So
all right, get off my podcast. I'm done with you.
Where we're going, we won't need rules.
Oh, so that's my list. Catharu, and I like the name. I think it's funny, and I like peeing on successful things, so Catharu. Nick's not here to share his Imperial build and what he's been flying, but I know from experience flying against him, and one of the biggest things he's been flying recently is a lot of stuff from Wave 10. He's been doing the Kylo Ren combo, which I've seen a lot of people are super, super excited about. Essentially, the idea is use Kylo Ren on a ship to action to apply the blinded pilot crit on your opponent's car or opponent's ship, and then when they get hit with a crit, it doesn't even have to. It can go through shields. They get hit with a crit, and blammo, they are blinded. And then using Colonel Vessery, I think, is that right, Pat?
You mean the guy who flips it back face up?
Yeah.
No, that's Lieutenant Colzat in the TIE Advanced.
Okay. Yeah. So using those 2 cards to essentially abuse blinded pilot and fly a ship basically off the board because it can't do anything. It can't fire at all. If you nail that on like Dengaru or any 2-ship builds, you win basically.
Yeah, and it's once the crit is on the ship, it is exceptionally easy just to keep Lieutenant Colzat in range 3 and just keep taking target locks.
Right.
I tested it against Nick. I tested it against defenders because normally one of the first things we test against is the defenders. And he managed to have Colonel Vessery not shoot 3 out of 5 turns.
Jeez.
And if he played it slightly better, he made a mistake because he was it's the first time he's testing the list.
Mm-hmm.
He could have very easily had Colonel Vessery not fire 4 turns out of 5,
Damn.
which is insane. So the problem is that while he was doing that, Countess Ryad was going just balls out, like murdering everyone.
Yeah.
So there's, I know he's been tweaking that list a lot, but I know that's something he's interested in as a Rebel player. Kylo Ren really scares me. There's a lot,
As he should.
Yeah.
He is Kylo Ren after all.
That's correct. He will show us the dark side. I guarantee you that.
That condition card, man. I know it was supposed to be super intimidating. I'll show you the dark side, but every time I read it, it's I'll show you the dark side.
The dark side. Yeah. I just keep thinking back to the Saturday Night Live skit where one of the fake characters says, "Kylo Ren is a punk bitch." Hey Nick, is that you?
I came in at the wrong time.
Oh, hey,
correct.
welcome back.
Yeah, we're bad mouthing Kylo Ren, bro.
Yeah, I came back to Kylo Ren is a punk bitch, and I would wish I had a gavel or something.
Well,
You're out of order.
We were wrapping up the section of our lists, what we've been flying. We were talking about how you've been running the Lieutenant Dan and Kylo Ren combo. Yes, it's Lieutenant Dan now.
Okay, so what I'm flying, I've had the most practice with defenders, which is kind of interesting because I've always used it as a counter. We're kind of using it as a benchmark, considering it placed 8 out of the last 10. A lot of tournaments that we've looked at. So I'm like, well, I might as well practice against them. Well, I've been practicing with them so much that might be something I'm shoehorned into flying because I have the most practice. Otherwise, I found something very interesting. I definitely want to practice with it. I want to try to make this work. But it's 1 defender, 1 bomber, and a striker. I'm a big fan of the 3 ship combinations.
Same
That's here. Kind of my comfort zone. A little bit different defender. I'm looking for higher pilot skills, something that might be able to hunt down something 7 and below. So I got an 8, 8, and a 6 for total for the list. With a 99-point build, so hopefully I can get the initiative on some people.
Going for that bid.
What was that?
Going for that bid. Trying to bid low so you can get that initiative.
Yeah, I think a bid will work on Palp defenders and stuff like that, but against the scum list, they're as low as 96, 97.
Yep.
So I've just accepted that I'm not going to outbid them as rebels or Imperials.
Right. And I'm okay. I mean, they're only 8s, they're not 9s, but I think the combo works pretty well with it. I need to practice it. I need to actually put it on the table and see, but this might be something I might be flying. I definitely wanted to get away from what I was shoehorned into, and so I'm going to be running Rexler Brath. He's a defender and works well with focus tokens, so he can kind of change out add some extra damage, flip all the damage cards over as long as he discards a focus token. He has juke on him. He's got the -2, so he's going to get his evade regardless, and hopefully a focus token or a barrel roll. Tomix, I love him as a support. He's got the high pilot skill. I put lightweight frame on him so he can get a little bit of that defense, as unfortunately I do not have Pelp with this list. But instead of going with Crackshot for offensive, thought of going Cool Hand. So in theory, I could be able to choose whether I want to focus or an evade. Most likely with this build, I'll be doing an evade almost every turn. How I'll be forcing that stress onto the table if I don't take any sharp turns or turnarounds is Fleet Officer. So in theory, I take my action as long as I don't bump. I get my stress. I got my evade with it through Cool Hand, and I'm giving a focus token to everyone around me. So hopefully that kind of works out in the combo, and in theory, people might not target Tomix quite as quick because I got some heavy hitters that are surrounding him. Also, Tomix has Hotshot Copilot, so he'll be a really good utility guy. That's what I'm hoping we'll run through. And then I got to run him with Pure. Pure Sabak is just too cheap not to throw down there. He again has a lightweight frame. and I can't move myself away from a build that does not have Swarm Leader in it. I want to pull it off. I think it'd be fun. And nothing would be more satisfying than taking my entire dice tray and just unloading it onto the table.
7 dice!
Yeah, you really are in love with Swarm Leader. Like, almost every list has either Swarm Leader or Kylo Ren in it.
Yep.
Because, I mean, those are the new toys for Imperials for sure.
Yeah, and I've had I love that Imperials are making a new turn with this, where they're kind of bringing more healthy aircraft into this, and they're making them a little more affordable, which is nice. I mean, Pure has 4 hull, but 4 hull is not 3 hull, which is what I was used to for a while when I was running Swarms.
Yes.
And at that low price for 4 attack die, how could you turn away from that? So whether the combo's there, I think it's more or less going to be a threat that I'm just going to be like, you better pay attention to me, because if I pull off this super mega combo, I'm just going to dump unlimited amounts of dice onto you, and it's going to have a focus token on it. So can't quite get the target lock in this build, but a focus token with 7 dice, if I'm able to pull it off, should leave the opponent like jaw dropped. Like, what happened? I don't think in a tournament many people are going to fall for that, but what I'm anticipating is that people try to blow him up, and then Tomix and the defender can kind of bring home a lot of the work with Pilot Skills 8. So I haven't played him yet. I don't know how well he's going to do. I think it's going to be kind of a hot potato scenario, and as long as I can learn how to fly him all 3 together well, then I think they'll do okay. I don't, maybe 50%, maybe a little better, but not much.
Yeah. I think, Nick, the one thing that we had talked about online, and I haven't flown against this list yet, but was that, you know, you want to shoot Tomax because he's got a lot of points on him, and bombers are not too difficult to bring down, even with a lightweight frame. But then if you leave Pure Sabak alone, and he's able to pull off that, his pilot ability / Swarm Leader combo once, like you say, that is very powerful. The main thing I think that you and I should be focusing on,
I see what we did there.
When it comes to play, when it comes to play testing, is I want to run this against Dengaroo, because I want to run this against a list that has the first shot, and I have a feeling I would go and shoot Pure Sabak, and with Zuckuss on board, I think that his pilot ability just goes away immediately, which is kind of the problem I have, with strikers in general. I want them to be good, so I can just go buy 3 of them because they look awesome and they look fun to fly with the title. But I just have a feeling that too many of the pilot abilities will be kind of things that don't get to happen because of other ships in the meta. Things like Dengaroo just basically turning off that pilot ability immediately.
Yep.
And then, but against defenders, I think defenders would be very scared of this, because no matter how much palp or focus or evade they have, they only roll 3 dice. So if you roll more than 3 and you get more than 3 hits, you're doing good. And if you roll 7, then you're doing very good. So
now that's we've kind of been on the what we're flying section for quite a long time. I'm just going to kind of push us forward into the next section, which is salty section, where we just talk about what makes us salty and what about the game just infuriates us, is unfair, sucks. We're going to whine like a bunch of teenagers. So who wants to go first?
I think I might have to go first on this.
Thank you for speaking up, Nick. Go ahead.
And thank you for not pointing me out. But I will say that over the last month, I've had a big moan, groan, sigh session over a lot of the building portion of this game. Every time I've sat down, I felt like I was watching a freaking episode of South Park where they were screaming, Simpsons did it, Simpsons did it, and I couldn't get out of my head because defenders were always there. Defenders could always do something better than the rest of my lists were, and I just couldn't I didn't have an answer for it. So more or less what I was looking at is running into the table, trying to find something that's going to be fun to fly, that's going to be competitive, and then every time I kept coming back to, Well, I just showed you my dial, so I get an evade. And an evade being one life plus 6 health on top of that was just too much. So more or less, that's why I think I'm going to be running defenders if I bring it into a tournament status, because it's kind of the commonplace. Not going to be a very happy feeling, but I'm more or less salty that there's one list right now before February 3rd that just is the list. You're going to see it on tournaments, you're going to see it at rank, you're going to see people flying it, and I could just jump online, be a first, couple months of playing it, I could look on and be like, oh, that one looks good, I'll fly that. Oh, by the way, I get 1 life, I can turn around, I can pelp, and I can unlimited target lock you, and forget that. So I kind of just got frustrated with that, looked at it, and said, all right, I'm going to try something new.
Yeah. I think for you, it's a case of, it's not even frustrating to fly against. It's when you're flying it, you almost don't enjoy it as much because it's just the list. Like, it's the most efficient list for Imperials, the end.
Yep.
Not that, people can't fly other stuff, and that, if they practice enough, they won't do well with it. But I think objectively speaking, if you look at the top lists, and where they're showing up in tournaments, then they're showing up all over, and they're making the cut lots of places as well. The one thing I would add to that is the one thing I'm glad about is they're not winning tournament after tournament after tournament, at least not based on list juggler, which I look at a lot for kind of like looking at the meta. So although they're making the top 16, I think there are people who are countering it enough, where even though a lot of these lists are being brought, there's still a lot of things that can counter them and give them a hard time. The one thing I don't understand is why it's not a free action for the evade.
Yeah.
So that, like if I were to fly a Rebel Swarm with a bunch of maybe B-Wings or X-Wings and a Headhunter or something, that's just not going to do that well against defenders, at least not from my experience. And I feel like if blocking or stress control were a legitimate counter to the defenders, then some of these lists might have a better chance, at least in the hands of, my hands, being a, not certainly not the best player in the world, and maybe not even just a good player, but
the best between us, as you said.
Well, I didn't want to say it, but
Hey, I'll show you the website.
So yeah, I'm not super salty about the defenders. Maybe because I've been practicing them against Nick a lot and winning. But
wow, rubbing the salt in.
Yeah, extra salt for you, and here's some pepper as well.
Hey, I am going to show you the dark side. Wait till February 3rd.
And but yeah, I'm actually legitimately interested why they made that decision to make it just give a free evade as opposed to take a free evade action. I'd be interested to hear if I ever got the chance to ask someone why they did that.
Yeah.
So
I kind of feel like it was an overcompensation because defenders were so bad for so long, and now they're like, oh my god, they're everywhere.
Yeah. And I recently picked up Imperial Veterans, and I gotta say I'm enjoying the list building with the defenders and also the bombers as well. So it's not that I don't appreciate them adding new things. Hopefully they'll pay attention to something like the B-Wing, maybe give it a title or something. Wink, wink.
We need to talk, sir. I don't think a B-Wing should. I'm gonna cut you off right now and start on my saltiness because you touched a note for me. Because there's a ship called the Star Viper that exists that is just pointless. It's not that it's a bad ship. It's just it's 30. To make it good, to make it really good, you're looking at close to 40, 45 points, and that's way too much for what it does. Especially like Fen Rao just came out, and Fen Rao is 28 points by himself. You put auto thrusters on him, you put Atani Mind Link, and then you put his title on. That's 32 points. There's not much out there in the game that has a range 1 5 dice or 4 dice plus an auto evade if you're facing each other safe zone. And then at range 3, okay, I have auto thrusters. That's 3 dice and an automatic evade out of one of them. You're basically safe at range 1 and range 3 as long as you're facing each other. Like, it's too good for 32 points, and that has totally taken my second favorite ship in the game, the Star Viper, and thrown it out the window. And, like, I want...
It's hard to beat those 32 points when it comes to, like, what can you get for that? I mean, you've flown, and you like as well, Talonbane Cobra, the Karaz Pilot Skill 9 guy. And I mean, unless you're flying them both, which you've done, Fenn is just, in my opinion, better at what he does for the points. So unless you're flying them both, you know, Talonbane Cobra is out of the picture. You know?
Exactly. I did come up with a list with 2 Talonbane, not Cobra. What's the ship? Starfleet. Karaz, yeah. I did come up with a list with 2 Karazes, but that's only because they're cheap missile carriers. And you might see that list later on a future episode, so stay tuned, kids. But we're actually coming really close to time, so we're going to go right all the way down to Stay on Target, our final section where we start talking about if we have any beginner tips or basic strategies, pitfalls, things to, like, each of us are going to give one tip at least or something to keep an eye on as you play. Who wants to go first?
I can go first.
You would.
So I think, you know, like we said in the beginning of the podcast, we're new players to the competitive scene. We're trying our hand at this, and really this game was my first competitive game at all. That wasn't just a normal board game. I've never done really Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon. You know, I played one game of Yu-Gi-Oh when I was younger. So I never really played a lot of these competitive games in competitive environments. And so my beginner tip is something I definitely had to learn even playing amongst the group of friends here. And that is not to go on tilt when dice don't go your way, when you make a bad decision, or even when your opponent just simply outplays you. I think, you know, a year ago, it was very easy to put me on tilt when it came to the game, and I feel maybe that I could have won a few of those games if I had just taken a deep breath and kept, you know, on task and on point, and kept just trying to search for the best decision to make in the game, even though it was very much an uphill battle, or even though, you know, I rolled, you know, extremely high variance when it came to dice, you know, bad luck, etc.
So I think that's say that you want everyone to stay on target.
That's correct. I just think that's an important lesson, not just to learn, but to remember every now and then, because every now and then, you know, like the game, Nate, that we played the other day, I got the ghost in range 1. I could just have eradicated Cobra with 5 dice, target locked, and then I get a crit and it's blinded pilot, and it's just like, you know, you've got to get past these type of moments, especially when we're going to be playing in tournaments where we play 6 or 7 games in a row, and you've got to not let that ruin your day. A, because you want to stay competitive, but also you've got to remember the main reason we got into this game, to have fun, because we love Star Wars and we wanted to fly little plastic spaceships around the board. So yeah, that's my tip. Just try not to get super salty and on tilt. And no matter what, whether you're about to lose the game, whether you're winning by a large margin because the game is going in your favor, don't let things like dice variance or bad decisions or bad luck put you on tilt or make you too confident. And just keep level-headed and keep making the right decision in every game, no matter what.
Cool. Nick, you got anything?
Yeah. I definitely agree with what Pat said. Big fan of just being like, it's a game, relax, enjoy yourself. I mean, in the end, you kind of see yourself as part of the movie, a part of the experience, so just enjoy it. But my big thing is more like in-game tips that I've kind of picked up and have to remind myself every time I go in is that I guess number one is that modified dice are always better than unmodified dice. You roll 7 attack die And if they all come up blank and you don't have a focus or a target lock or any other action, sorry. You might as well have just said, I don't want to attack you this turn. And the same on defense. That evade token that's just kind of sitting there, unless, of course, Palab comes cruising by, you're enjoying your life, and you're going to be like, you know what? No matter what, I got a little buffer. So the number one thing is make sure you have modified die. It's super amazing to pretend you're flying through space. You did a barrel roll, and now you're just shooting lasers. Problem is, most of the time you perform that barrel roll, and all of a sudden, wait, where's my target lock? Where's my focus token? And that kind of blows up in your face sometimes. The other thing that I really got to say that kind of goes hand in hand with that is practice makes perfect. The cool thing is that there are some awesome maneuvers that the game has been engineered to do, and different turns, different styles, different sizes. If you go out there and you say, you know what, I want to find out what a 4K turn boost and then barrel roll looks like, you can do it. The game allows it. And with the asteroids out there, with the cluster of ships that are just come straight at you and joust, there's only one way out, and you got to find it. So practice makes perfect.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely, especially the modified dice, I'd agree with that. The number of times that I got super excited flying a Kuraz right into range 1 and then rolling 5 dice, and most of them coming up blank because I never took into account target lock or predator at the time, or focus has just ruined me. 5 dice, 1 damage. Evaded with 1. Okay, thanks. Thanks for playing. GG. I would say my tip, or my suggestion, is an age-old anthem of anyone who's ever played trading card games or competitive games that require you to use cards to build X. It goes by RTFC, which is read the effing cards. It's a constant mantra you want to keep in your mind, because you're going to find by reading a card again and again and again and really paying attention to every single stupid word on it, like may becomes very important at certain times. Once you have really digested the card, you can start to get the concepts and understand what they really mean. A Tiny Mind Link I always thought was a really great card, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. But then Pat brought to my attention the fact that it says anytime you assign a focus, it triggers. Palab can steal a focus token from anyone within range 1 or 2 and then give it to the whole team. Kato Lichos, the what are you? Z95 Headhunter, he says he can remove a focus or evade token from someone within range 1 or 2, a friendly ship. Normally he'd be kind of useless, but with a Tiny Mind Link, oh cool, I just stole one from my buddy. Now I have 2 focus tokens and the rest of my team has 1, and you reassign it. Manaru, you take your focus token, you hand it off to someone else, you're assigning it to someone else, you're getting it back. These little loopholes create insane strategies that, I mean, they may not be thematic to Star Wars or anything at all, but you kind of break the game, and to me, it's a lot of fun finding these little loopholes and kind of breaking them open and going, look at this crazy shit that I can do. But that's coming from someone who's been playing TCGs his whole life. So,
and you got to credit the designers for that, because MindLink is getting big now, around the meta, but that card's been out for a decent amount of time now, and obviously, the designers, when they looked at the scum ships, they looked at what MindLink could do, and they saw these shenanigans, but it just kind of took a while, I think, for the card to catch on, and the first people to do that, to find that card that can work perfect in this combo, even though by itself it's not really that useful, or doesn't have a lot of utility, but when you put it in this specific build, all of a sudden it make the whole is better than the sum of the parts, right?
Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to wrap it up for us. This has been the 585 Squadron, and thanks for listening in.
Hey everyone, this is Pat. Just wanted to add here at the end that we do have an email that you can email us. It's 585, and those are numbers. So 585, the numbers, squadron@gmail.com. We also are going to have a Facebook page set up by the time this episode airs. So please search for us on Facebook. It's actually going to be a group, so we want it to be kind of a place where people like us who maybe are considering the competitive scene or just love X-Wing can chat, share builds, maybe get salty with each other for a little bit of fun, and an all-around discuss an X-Wing. So, bye everyone.
Bye.
We're passing through the magnetic field.